Danny Briere was in the house last night. He's currently running the day-to-day operations for the Maine Mariners. Of course, a former Flyer. And love picking Danny's brain from a guy who runs the day-to-day operations now and got a chance to watch this Flyers team last night. So happy to have him join us here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Happy New Year, Danny. How you been?
Hi, guys. Happy New Year to yourselves as well.
Doing good, Danny. So, Danny B., you see this Flyers team that goes Jekyll and Hyde as we're describing them. You know, Coatsy would say they threw a shoe against the Penguins. And what did you see last night? Because I thought it was an entirely different kind of hockey team and attitude that they came out with.
Yeah, they were totally different last night. I guess that player meeting after last game against Pittsburgh probably helped. It seems so. Yesterday, I saw a team with a lot more jump, a team that was just wanted the puck a lot more and wanted to protect it. They were moving their feet. They were, bouncing off of the checks rather than getting pinned down. Those are the things that really stood out to me.
As an observer of the game, can you put into words how tough the Metro division is? I mean, because here they are trying to make up ground, and it's tough to do in that division.
It is extremely tough to do, and especially when you're losing ground against teams like Pittsburgh, which was just a team a point or two ahead of you. Those are the games that you need to start winning. We saw one finally last night, but the good thing is in the second half of the season, you're going to play a lot more divisional teams, so that should help them if they want to make a push. But at the same time, you need to beat those teams.
Danny Briere is with us here, and hey, Danny, first off, I want to get your thoughts on Nolan Patrick. We talked a little bit about him. The Flyers kind of lucking into that pick, and he had the concussion. He's been up and down, but what do you see from such a young player? But we've seen a lot of young players in this league come out and make an impact, and of course, Flyer fans are saying, well, he hasn't made the impact that these other young guys have.
I'll be honest with you guys. I am not worried at all with Nolan Patrick at this point. It's early in his career. Some guys it takes a little longer. I mean, I remember about 20 years ago, there was a certain Joe Thornton that had, I think, 7 or 8 points his rookie season, and he turned out okay. Similar frame, big, tall guy, and sometimes it just takes more time. You see a guy like Nico Ischier, which obviously is going to, Nolan Patrick's going to get compared to a lot because of being 1 or 2 in the draft this past season. But, Ischier is a lot more dynamic, is a little more explosive, and I think that plays into his favor. I think in the long run, I still believe Nolan Patrick will be as good, or if not better, than Nico Ischier. So that's what I see.
Danny Briere is with us. Flyers win last night, so the Flyers, still kind of out of the playoff mix, but they're fighting, as you mentioned. They're going to see a lot of division foes, so a lot of these swing games for them. But they got this veteran core who's got a lot of experience with Giroux and Voracek and Couturier and Simmons. Then they got this young back end here. So when you watch a team that is built like that, do you, Danny, see a team that's a playoff team?
This season, it might be tough. Just because I think we're a little too young on the back end. But those guys need to play. They need to get the experience. I think in 2 or 3 years from now, the Flyers will have one of the better defense in the league. It's the price to pay in the meantime, unfortunately. But you got to keep playing the young defensemen. You got to give them some experience, and I think it's going to pay off in 2 and 3 years for the Flyers.
Danny, you played center for so many years, and the Flyers got to a point where they had a glut of centers. They had so many centers and had trouble finding a left wing, and who knew the answer was to move Giroux over to the left wing? Can you talk about the dynamic of A, swallowing his pride and saying, sure, I'll move over, and then B, how that impacted Couturier?
Yeah, well, to be honest, at first, I didn't see that as a good move. I was very reluctant when I first saw the move, but I got to give Claude a lot of credit for, first of all, accepting the move and making such an impact going to the wing like that. I think what I'm seeing is that it's gives him the chance to focus a little bit more on the offense. He doesn't have to come all the way back to the goal line in his own zone to cover and help out his defenseman. He gets the puck on the fly a lot more, especially with the style of play that Dave Haxtell has them playing. He wants his centerman a lot lower in the zone. So for Claude, it was taking away his offense a little bit, and now it just works perfectly. The chemistry that they were able to build between Claude and Sean Couturier, is working great. I think this might be an answer that we're going to see for a few years to come.
Yeah, Couturier, a guy that they had always been waiting to pay off, and the guy, a lot of people didn't think he deserved to be any higher than a fourth or third line guy because he does such a good job defensively, but you can't just write off the offensive talent by moving up to the first line, right? It's always been in there.
Yeah, well, that's what we were always wondering with him. When was he going to take the next step? And like you mentioned, he's such a good, responsible defensive player that it gave the chance for guys like Giroux and Voracek to concentrate more on the offense, and we see it with Konechny as well now. Hopefully that keeps going for him. It's good to see Travis getting some looks and being able to score a goal last night. Hopefully he's able to get some confidence off of that.
They didn't have a mandatory NHL break when you played, right? I mean, what do you think of this big mandatory bye week?
I love it. I would have loved it as a player. I know management is not a big fan of it, but as players, it's always nice to have. The season is so long. It takes a toll. These guys are getting beat up. I've heard and I've seen the stats last year where teams coming out of that bye week were struggling more than the rest of the season. But I still think, for the players' point of view, I'm sure they're loving it.
Hey, Danny, I'm 40. I'll be 41 in a couple of weeks. My entire life, essentially, has been asking the question about Flyers goaltending. Do you think that Brian Elliott has maybe calmed down some of those questions for the first time since what? Hextall in '87?
Yeah. You know what? He's been playing extremely well. I give him a lot of credit. I didn't know how it was going to turn out at first with him. But he's been very, very impressive, and he's given those guys a chance to win on a regular night, on a regular basis, and that's what you want. The Flyers, for so long, they've had really extremely good teams in front, and the goaltending was always the issue. So it's good to see, and hopefully a little bit of stability there in that position.
Yeah, and I guess it's really the first time that Haxtall or anybody else has given a guy just a run, just saying, go out there every single night and play. Typically it's, all right, you get two, Neuwirth, you get one, then you get one, then you get two. It doesn't seem that over the years there's been a guy that they've consistently allowed to win that position.
You're right. Even when I was there with Peter Laviolette or John Stevens before, we've never seen too many goalies go on long stretches of play like we've seen or we're seeing from Elliott now. And for some goalies, they love it. They love it because they get in a groove. They feel confident. They know they're going in. They don't have to worry on a nightly basis if they're playing or not. So for some guys, it works great, and it seems to be the case with Elliott.
Well, let's check in with you, Danny. I see this outdoor Capital Blue Outdoor Classic, and you're on that roster. Aaron Asham, Dave Brown, Terry Carter, Jeff Chikrin. I mean, the Flyers names. Eric Lindros is on there. John LeClair's on there. What's this game against Flyers alumni and Hershey Bears alumni coming up?
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Still love putting the skates on and having a chance to skate. The intensity is not the same anymore, but I'm still having a blast when I get to go on the ice.
When I saw that post come across my Facebook page, I was asking about, where's Tim Tookie or where's Don Knockbauer? And then I saw Knockbauer's on John Stevens' staff, so he might be a little too busy to play and represent the Bears. But I got to think the Flyers alumni side is a little stacked heavier than these Hershey Bears roster.
Well, we'll see about that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I'm sure we'll have a blast, and hopefully there's gonna there's going to be a lot of fans cheering us on.
And before we let you go, tell us about the Maine Mariners and this ECHL franchise and what you're doing. And are you going to leave us? Are you going to leave the area at some point, or can you do this remotely until it gets up and kicks up going?
Well, I'm staying here until we start playing. After that, we'll see. We'll see how. Obviously, I'll have to be up there a lot more when the next season starts. But we'll see. You know, we're doing well. The front office is going full force now, and you know, slowly we'll start looking at the hockey side and then finding coaches and players in the summer to get ready for the 2018-19 season.
Now, Danny, is that something that you're trying to groom yourself to, maybe jump into a general manager role in the NHL or something to that effect?
I don't know at this point. You know, Paul Holmgren was great in giving me this opportunity. I followed him around for a couple years, kind of learning what he was doing with the Flyers, but more on the business side of the organization, along with Sean Tilger. These guys have given me a lot of experience. And then last summer, when the Flyers organization bought the Maine Mariners, which we didn't know the name at the time, they approached me about running that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, I'm taking it one step at a time. I'm having fun with this, and you know, we'll see where the future takes me. But right now, I'm focused on the Mariners and you know, get them off the ground in a good manner.
Danny Briere, everybody. Of course, the Flyers tomorrow afternoon will have the game for you on 97.3 ESPN. The face-off at 1 o'clock. These as soon as the calendar flips and football ends, they start to do those Saturday 1 o'clock games. So we'll have them all for you right here on 97.3 ESPN. Danny, great to catch up, pal.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much.
Danny B.